Well, here it is, Independence Day. People say Happy 4th of July, but the reality is it's Independence Day. It just happens to land on the 4th of July. So a friend of mine just retired, and I sent him a note saying, Happy Independence Day. It's truly an Independence Day for you because he's free from his old job and he can now live his life and do what he wants to do instead of getting up to the drudgery of a job every day that he doesn't really love to do. And I realized that my life is a job. I have a job. And all of our lives, we have a job. The question is, are we doing the job that God gave us to do? Or are we just living and existing on this planet until we expire? So I wake up every day at the crack of dawn. Usually it's funny, when the sun comes up at whatever it is, 4:45, 5 o'clock, starts getting just a little bit light. I can feel the light. I can feel it, and it wakes me up. And I thought, how can I feel that it's getting light when all the curtains are closed? But it's peeking around behind the curtains, and something is calling me. Time to get up. Time to start your day. And I'm excited. I'm excited because I know I have only a certain amount of time on this planet to accomplish what God wants me to do, of which I don't know every day what I'm supposed to do, but I wake up eager to do whatever it is. But what I want to talk about today is the quickening in my heart. And I'm curious if anybody else feels the quickening. What I mean is, I feel like time is running out. My time is running out. In my hand, I'm holding an old pocket watch. I found it in a box in my shop when we were cleaning it out. And I thought, look at that sucker. It's got a piece of tape on the broken part of the glass on the front. It's got to be 100 years old. And I wound it just a little bit. Just kind of wound it. And I thought, maybe it works. Sure enough, it started ticking. And I could hear the ticking in my bathroom all the way from my bed in the other room. I could hear the ticking, and I thought, is that my heart? Is that the clock? Is that time going by? There's a quickening. Time is happening, and I'm wasting it. I'm wasting the time of my life by just laying here in bed, dreaming fantasies. You know, I could be in Hawaii right now. I could be in a sports car driving down the road going fast. I could be doing all the things that my fantasies tell me I could be doing, but I know that I have a job. And I wake up and I think, all right, I'm getting up. I'm not going to lie here and waste the time. And I hear the ticking. Tick, 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 tick. And I brought this old thing with me because it was calling out to me this morning. Again. It was calling out to me, and all of a sudden, it stopped. I listened and I went, I don't hear that clock. So I went into my bathroom, and it was underneath some papers, and I picked it up, and I looked at it. It was 20 after 12 right now is what it says, which is the wrong time. It's the wrong time. I said it the other day, but it had stopped. And I said, you stopped. And it stopped because it's just a mechanical thing. The question is, are we living our lives mechanically? Just the way that we've been taught by the world. Somebody wound us up, told us we're supposed to go get a job and live a life that is like this. Be a doctor, be a dentist, be a contractor, be a whatever. And then they wound us up and they set us off into our adventure of life. And one day that clock stops and it's over. But did we do our job? Did we do the job that our Lord gave us to do? That's the question. So the clock stopped and I got up and I looked at it and I thought, well, you're just a mechanical thing. You're just a mechanical thing, a bunch of gears. And if I wind you up, you'll keep time for a while. Maybe the time's wrong. Today, the time's wrong. So the question is, Are we just mechanical things living the wrong life? The clock shows the wrong time. It's not 20 after 12 at all. But most of us are living the wrong life. The time is wrong. The mechanical thing is wrong. Whoever wound us up and spin us out into the world and, like a spinning top, didn't really help us to understand life. And so we're living a wrong life, just like this clock has the wrong time. The hand of God reaches out and says, you're not that clock. You're not that machine that somebody tells you you are. You're a soul and a spirit, and you belong to me. I've been living a wrong life for too long. It hurts to realize how much of my life I've wasted. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't want to live that way anymore. I want to live the life that God wants me to live. I don't want to be this stupid mechanical thing. I don't want to live according to the world. So I'm going to take this watch, this clock, and I'm going to give it back. Throw it into the lake because it's just a stupid mechanical thing. That's right, exactly. I'm tired of hearing that thing clicking away in my bathroom, making noise, telling me I'm a mechanical thing and I need to obey the mechanical garbage of this world. Whew. A friend of mine this morning, looking on Facebook for a minute while I was waiting for Jan to get ready. He has this stuff, pictures of his mom, and I thought, well, his mom, she doesn't look that old. She doesn't look that old. What happened? Why are there multiple pictures of his mom? He's in Alaska. He's a good soul. So I called him and I said, what happened to your mom? He said, she died. I said, how old was she? And he told me the story. We don't know when the clock is going to stop ticking. We don't know when the mechanical part of our life is going to just stop. Because we're so caught up in being mechanical things that one day it just stops. And you don't do what you're supposed to do according to God's will. You just lived your mechanical will. He said that she had defib or whatever, and they put a watcher on her heart, and she fell, and it tore her heart. She fell, and the thing that was supposed to watch her heart tore her heart. And it started filling the sac around her heart. And he said, and I knew my mom was going to be okay. She was only 78. She's a good woman. She taught me everything I know about God and life. And he said, she laid there and she coded out, right? I was just there 5 minutes and holding her hand. And he said, and they couldn't give her CPR because of the thing on her heart, the watcher. Because if they did, it would destroy her heart even more because it's a mechanical device. So the very thing that was supposed to help save her killed her. Because that's how it works. You don't know when the clock is going to stop ticking. And he told me the story crying, and it was so sad. Oh my God. Because he's such a good guy. And he loved his mom so much, and he was holding her hand. And there was nothing anybody could do. Because if they tried to give her CPR, it would be worse. I have another friend that had a similar thing. His wife had a pacemaker put on, and the pacemaker malfunctioned, and pacemaker's supposed to like shock your heart or something, or do something to help bring you back to life. And it shocked her 1,000 times, and it killed her. So we look for all these mechanical things outside of God to save us. And many of these stupid things kill us because we don't want to admit that the life that we have lived has been wrong. And it's sad. So this is a heads up. This is a heads up, I think, for all of you guys and all of us and me, that we got to stop living these mechanical lives that the world tells us we have to live and that the doctors tell us we have to do. And we got to go in. So the heads up, what does that mean? Lift your head up to your Father in heaven. Heads up. In the Army, they say eyes up. Eyes up. Enemies around. Heads up. The enemy's around. Eyes up. But people, they don't want to admit they're wrong. They don't want to admit they've lived a stupid, useless life. They just think, that's all there was. You got to admit it. I admit it. I've lived a useless, stupid life because I was trying to please the world. I was trying to become what the world said was great. I achieved it. It wasn't great. And there's one thing to admit it, say I've lived a foolish life, a stupid life. There's another thing to lift your head up to your Father in heaven and repent for it, saying, I'm sorry, Father. I didn't know any better. I made mistakes. I did dumb things. I am so sorry. That is repenting. I am sorry. Help me. We can't help ourselves. My son-in-law said something about, all the doctors in the world can't save you. You can only save yourself. But I realize he's a young man. He doesn't understand that we really cannot save ourselves either. But what he means is these decisions that we make every day, whether you lay there in bed and fantasize and dream about all the things you want instead of the things that you should be doing. But I've just decided I'm going to listen to the quickening that's in my heart. It says time is running out. That clock is not going to torture me anymore. Tick, 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 tick. It's almost like it was saying to me, you don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time. The reality is there's a lot of truth to that. We don't have a lot of time. But I don't want to be a mechanical human being following the mechanics of religion, the mechanics of school, the mechanics of culture. I don't want to be a mechanical thing that can be wound up every Sunday at church. I don't want to be wound up by something I like. I don't want to be wound up by resentment. I don't want to be energized by any outer force other than my Creator. Life is far too short. It's over in an instant. So I'm done being a mechanical thing. And I say that, but I'm sure I'll have to figure out how to fix myself again because I get caught up. But I want to read something. We are very stubborn creatures. We slowly get pulled back into the quagmire. This is Psalm 1 through 3. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of the sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. We will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. And in whatever he does, he prospers. To me, that's just pretty darn simple. Because I was out in the world, in the path of the sinners, walking with all the authorities in my life, all the authorities in this world, believing the authorities, the doctors and the news sayers and all the people in this world. But my Mormon friend brought me something that was so powerful, and I know you guys have heard it before, but we have to put all the things we've been taught, the culture, the teachings of our fathers, on the altar of our one true father, to be able to learn what your true father wants to teach you. And when he told me that, he called me and he says, I got to talk about this with somebody, because he's a Mormon guy. And the Mormons, they got their ways, and they were kind of shunning him a little bit, including his family. But when he told me that, I realized something that was so huge, because even with my dad, I wanted to learn my dad. Anybody else try and learn my dad? I wanted to learn him and learn his way and learn his style, because I wanted to try to be like my dad. But what I realize is I was just, again, another mechanical version, what he called a Roy bot. And it always set a little uncomfortable in me that I would try and read something of my dad's and then say, well, I guess I could say that. Anybody could say it, right? Anybody can say, you can say stuff out of the Bible, right? And
Well, you have to bear with me here. I'm not used to talking, but yeah, I remember with Roy. I always, like I was telling my friend, Roy was one of a kind. He couldn't be replaced. I mean, he was directly. God poured His understanding to him. It was directly from God. He was a chosen person for this time, and you can't replace him. The only thing you can do is to discover the spirit that was coming through him, and surrender to that spirit, to God. God gave him the understanding of the meditation to do that. That opened the door to interface with God. But trying to be like him, now you can't do that. It's everybody have different talent, and everybody is individual. The key is to understand things, the foundation of the principle of things, really, and then you integrate it into your own personality to use in your way. Rush Limbaugh used to say, once you understand something, you can explain it. It might not be as eloquent as somebody else, but you can explain it once you understand it, and get beyond the nervousness of it. Like, I was out here about 81 was the last time I was out here. I say in honor of Roy, to his family, because he was very special to me. He saved me from hell in a big way, and I needed somebody that was deep to do that. Just the regular stuff that the society was giving you, the churches. I understood all that. I used to search, but it wasn't enough because my problem was too deep. And when I first heard Roy in 79, and I knew it instantly, it was the real deal. And he only could come from God, because only God knows what's inside of a person. And Roy was the first person that identified those things and explained it. And it resonated with me perfect, and it's been resonating ever since. And I appreciate your dad, and he's definitely God person, and your mom, and your whole family. And I really appreciate y'all taking over, because I was concerned about that. I said, I so hope this kid take over, because what he's teaching and showing people is priceless. It's beyond price. In the meditation, it's a natural thing. I wasn't a perfect person and stuff, but when I was 20 years old in 69, I got shot 3 times, all upper, but then nothing hit anything. All the bullets went straight through. And I remember laying on the ground, and I seen those little lights and stuff Roy talked about. But I didn't know what it was, but that's what came to me. And my mind was in my center in those little lights. And I heard, and the world was just tuned out. I heard things, but it didn't mean nothing. It was that light. It was like it was holding me there. And then this police leaned on me and said, oh, you're going to die. And that didn't mean nothing to me, because I knew I wasn't, but I was just in another space. Just by being in that light, I was separated from thoughts for the first time in my life. I was totally free from the thoughts. And so ever since then, 10 years, I always was curious about that. I remember that. And I went through a lot of stuff since then. And then 10 years later, that's when I discovered Roy, and he started talking about it. I said, oh, yeah, this is it, I said, yeah. And he showed how to separate from your thinking and your imagination and the fantasies. The devil totally had a grip on me ever since I was real small, but I was always conscious of it. And when I heard Roy, I knew he was the real deal. I knew he was from God, because that's the only person that knows what's going on in the deepest depth of a person and show you where evil is on the inside, the other identity, and how to separate from it. And it's key, and the meditation is the key, and the key is, though, you have to stick with it, and you have to be totally sincere and totally dedicated completely.
What is your name?
Dillard Bolton, but they call me Bo.
Bo, I got to tell you, you know what? First of all, you say my dad is from God, but we are all from God. And I got to tell you, your message just now probably reached out into the world, and that person's probably saying he's from God too. Because you are. I mean, we are all from God. But that consciousness you say you had ever since you were a little boy is the consciousness that we all have, that we slowly put to sleep through the unconscious state, what my dad calls, the hypnotic states of Americans, of all people in this world. But it wakes back up at a certain point. And your awakening came when you heard my dad on the radio. But you remembered that silence that you were in when you were on the brink of life and death.
Exactly.
That is where we need to really be, is on the brink of life and death at all times, because that stillness, believe it or not, is what we're trying to achieve in our lives. That stillness of the soul and the spirit. And that way nothing can hurt you. The guy lied to you. You're going to die. It didn't mean anything to you. You could say whatever you want to somebody. When you're in your center, in that stillness, it doesn't matter what the world says, because you're connected to your Creator.
Exactly. That's exactly true. And that's exactly what happened. It's like God came to me, and I didn't know what it was, but it was something magical and special, but I didn't know it at the time. But I wasn't feeling nothing. I wasn't feeling no pain. It was like I was in another dimension and didn't know it. And lo and behold, I discovered what that was. God showed me. And then your dad, I used to work early in the morning, and he used to come on early in the morning, like 7 o'clock. And when he came on, I knew that was it. And when he started talking about the meditation, matter of fact, he had mentioned just a little of it before I started to work. I even tried it without even really knowing it, because I knew it was real. And I've been following ever since. And it took 43 years for everything. And I overcame everything, believe me. I was your typical person, addicted to everything, and
Addicted to the world.
To the world, the culture and stuff. That's what Roy said. You got to separate from culture. That's what keeps you separated from God's culture. And God led me slowly but surely to overcome everything, a little at a time. But the key is, like Roy used to always say, you got to stick with the meditation. Don't look for feelings or nothing. Because what happens when you meditate and stuff, God give you gifts. You might not realize it until 2 or 3 months later, that gift. And you look back and say, oh, you already have it. Because when God gives you gifts, it's eternal, it's permanent. Like your dad, his books and what he was talking about, the things Roy talked about are eternal things. It's everlasting, it's living, And he was showing you the mind of Christ, the mind of a little child, innocence. He was, bringing us back to that. And that's what I yearned for all my life. My heart leapt for joy, and it still do. It's always new to me. It's never old. It's fresh and new every day.
I'm standing here listening to you talk, and the sun broke through the clouds. We're on the gazebo at Tall Timber Ranch and started warming me from the back. And I thought to myself, it's the warmth, and it's so funny how we live our lives with, like in a movie, like that movie. What is that movie with Jim Carrey? Truman Show. All of a sudden I wake up in my life and I think I've been in a movie. And I feel like that all these things that have been in my life, whether you want to call it culture or whatever it is, just this fantasy world, it's like the Matrix or whatever. All of a sudden I'm seeing through it, and I'm trying and enjoying. I'm not trying, it's a better word. I'm enjoying seeing my alpaca up in the field over there right now, by the way. I'm enjoying the silence. And in my bedroom, there was a clock. I just threw it in the lake. There was a little broken clock that was working, and I could hear it ticking. And I thought, that devil is he's trying to pull me out of my beautiful silence, even with the ticking of a clock.
I know when you first did it, when I came here, I smiled because we was just talking about that. I told him, I said, I don't deal with clocks or nothing. You know what I mean? TV, total stillness. And it's so beautiful. And that's what God speaks to you. When you're still and quiet and no distractions, oh man, it's paradise. You can taste heaven.
The reason why I wanted to come out here and do the Sunday talk today, of course, it's a beautiful place. And last week's talk was early to bed, early to rise. And a few people said, can we do it a little later? And I said, no, let's all get up early, a little earlier, and come out to the ranch and for those who participated. But I feel like the morning hours, just like, kind of like the midnight hours or the witching hours, but the morning hours are the hours when you have peace. I'm standing here looking over the lake, and I see a duck with her little ducklings following behind her. I see the alpaca walking along. There's horses out in the field, and the sun shining through the clouds, and beautiful surroundings. And I think to myself, paradise. Mm-hmm. Paradise. We really have paradise in this world, but we've lost it. Not that it isn't here and doesn't exist. My dad called his boat heaven on earth. I remember him calling the Coast Guard one time when the engine broke down. Coast Guard, this is heaven on earth. Coast Guard. And I thought, this is not heaven on earth. It's broken and we're in the ocean. Coast Guard, heaven on earth calling. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh. But we can have a certain amount of heaven on earth and paradise if we choose to have paradise. Because it starts within. And then wherever you are, it doesn't matter. You can be in New York City, you can be anywhere, and you can have that paradise of that quiet, that calm nature. Like you said, the mind of Jesus, the Spirit. And then guess what? You are sent out with that job I talked about. You are on a mission from God. Aren't we supposed to be on a mission from God? Did anybody else get stirred what was the name of that movie when the Blues Brothers says, we're on a mission from God? Remember that? They were supposed to do something, and so they got in this stupid old cop car, and they put their sunglasses on, and it's the silliest thing, but he looks at him and he says, we're on a mission from God. And I remember thinking to myself, this is 40 years ago, a mission from God. Well, we're all supposed to be on a mission from God. And we're supposed to go out and touch others that are sleepwalking. Yeah. Somebody says to me the other day, person who is one of these people that loves to quote the Bible. And it almost makes me not want to quote the Bible because of the Bible thumpers that quote the Bible and then feel like they've done something good. It's just to quote the Bible is nice, but then you got to live it.
That's why what Roy said, what he teach people or show people, it makes your religion alive. You know what I mean? It makes Christianity come alive because you see how to live it. Allow it to live in you. In other words, you can't live it, but the key is surrendering your will to God's will, and that's it.
So I said to my friend when he said, have you brought anybody to Christ lately? And I said, yes. I said, every day. Every day. He says, how have you done that? This is a text message back and forth. I said, because I'm living my life the way God instructs me to live as of lately. And that is bringing people over. Believe it or not, it does. We do.
It affects people without you saying anything. What you are, your spirit affects people. You don't have to say anything. You be around people. Like I ride my bike all the time. And I'm always around people just talking, just normal talk. But just by me being pure and clean and overcoming sin, it radiates. And I know it. I don't look for it, but you can just sense it. And every now and then people, they tell you, and I can sense, like you say, God, you be a messenger from God without even saying anything. You just being a God person. That's all that's really required. And then God do the rest.
Being one of God's children. Here's another person that wants to ask a question. Thank you, Bo, for that. That was awesome.
He described the situation in Ghost with Patrick Swayze when he was shot and he saw these lights and stuff and he was going to die. That was my reference to that. I thought that was pretty cool. And then Patrick Swayze lived in the light the entire time of his existence for his love of his life in helping her.
Look at those alpaca up there, just eating their hearts away.
I like what you said, sir. I get that. Love really is an energy. It radiates without words. I get that. And I wanted to share one thing that I just read actually from the newsletter, FHU. It was a quote from Roy, and he said, meditation is a daily free choice to live right and not an obligation. And that's really important because for years I did it as an obligation and a habit, and I never really got anywhere. It seemed to keep me somewhat safe, but like now it's new every day. It's a new, very blessed thing.
You see the value of meditating.
It's not an obligation. It's a wondrous blessing because we can fall into that. I mean, in anything, the devil will get you into that mundane thing, even on this.
I want to read something again because it was in this. By the way, did you see the Alpaloosa up there next to the tree? Here, just let me read this to you guys real quick. It says in that Psalm 1 through 3, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I feel, my dad used to always say, and I know you guys have heard him say it, that he lives in a state of meditation. Well, the intellectual mind says, oh, that's impossible because, they're picturing themselves laying in a bed or sitting in the chair with a hand. You can't meditate day and night. You can't do that. But at a certain point, your life is a constant meditative state of consciousness.
Right. Yeah, if you didn't do this meditation, you're going to be in a meditative state anyway in the world. You know what I mean?
Opposite type of meditation, yes.
Yeah, and your mind going to be somewhere.
Hypnotic state. Yes.
Right. Your mind going to be somewhere, so being still and being and observing the thoughts that's going on inside you and just being aware of it. Just being aware, as Roy always said, just whatever the problem is, just being aware of it is the solution, because it's God light that's showing you what the problem is, and us just watch it and it resolve itself. I don't care what the problem is, medical, psychological, whatever it is. Just by being aware, God always gives you the answers. And that's the way it always been with me. My life has been magical, especially since Roy, because I let go and let God. I don't care what kind of problem I got. He solves everything. And every gift he gives me is perfect. He always gives me perfect gifts, stuff that I really like, style, everything. It all comes from God. Because I don't think of nothing, because my mind ain't intellectual. It's just, my mind is just conscious. Yeah, just conscious and being aware of the moment, as Roy said. And not being caught up in thought. Being caught up in thought is where the hypnosis is. Uh-huh.
For years, I had a thing up on my wall I copied from Roy, late 1970s or something, from the radio show, and I typed it up in my little Atari computer. And I can't remember it precisely, but it said, prayer is the intercourse of soul with God, and which ought to continue at all times. And I've always used that as a guidance to know that prayer is not just something where you just say words and questions, and there's a prayer that I call a prayer that you do that is superficial, but it's asking for forgiveness and connecting with God. But there's also a prayer where you are intercourse with God. You're looking for divine guidance all the time and watching, your angers and your fears and your anxieties and stuff like that. And when you always searching for divine guidance, and that's always been something that's helped me throughout my life.
When you shared that you were texting back and forth with your friend, My husband and I talk about this. We're very well versed in the language of Christianese, is what we call it. So we live near a what's called a mega church in the Sacramento area. It's a huge church, and I don't attend this church, but I'm very, very involved with this church because there is just the world is just so full of need. You talk about what are you going to do when you wake up? They're very involved with the community. And so I get myself involved in the community, and I understand the language of Christianese, and I can interpret it. I know what they're talking about, and I can translate it to other people. But usually I know what to respond with, and I don't buy into all that. There wasn't a date that I was saved. I think it's an ongoing journey, and I'm glad and grateful to be on that journey. And I can see how that can turn people off from Christianity, is that Christianese lingo, and people get caught up in it.
My friend that texted me that he's a Christian according to culture. Sure. He has all the right words. He has all of the incredible, memorized, unbelievable things that you would just love to memorize and have those ready to whip out at any time and just use them as reference or something to make, the person think, wow, he knows his stuff, but he doesn't live it. He's a total hypocrite. And I think to myself, that's so sad. If you could put those things together and then live it, and then I think, like our friend Bo said, you know it. It's a part of you. And you can regurgitate some of these beautiful things. It's awesome. My dad used to be able to do that a little bit, but I noticed that all his books were all marked with little markers and little pieces of paper, and he didn't care to try to memorize things. It wasn't that it was important to memorize. It would just, certain things, he just knew them. It became a part of him. And he would even say, it's something like this. It would be, this, that, and the other. But it wasn't the exact quote, but it had the meaning that was more important than getting the words right. The meaning was right. And that's what is missing in so many people's lives. They just memorize the words, and the words sound pretty. And as my friend Bo, that is our foreman here, he says, tickles the ears. And I'm not interested in tickling the ears. I'm interested in delivering meaning that can help change lives. Yeah. Like my dad changed my life and your life and all of our lives. Yes.
In a big way. Well, it's just like you're saying, the intellectual, and you got knowledge, but that was the original sin, the knowledge, good and evil, pride in his intellect. Adam fell into his intellect once they sinned. And once he fell into the intellect, it was, playing God. And that's been man's problem ever since. We wasn't meant to be living our intellect. Look, a little child, he lived naturally, but he's not living out of his intellect. He just natural flow. Then the world, as he grow old, the world start contaminating, take away his innocence. But yeah, you just want to live from intuition, as Roy says.
What's funny is I had my grandson over last night, and I'm watching him play, and he plays by himself sometimes, and sometimes he wants to play with us, and sometimes he wants to paint. And I watched all the little things that he did at our house last night, and we eventually ended up at the end of the night watching some little TV show that was made for children. And I was more interested in watching him and watching his face and looking at his innocence, his beautiful, beautiful innocence.
I like to do that to little children. I love to be around kids because they show you how you should be. What hurt my heart when I see people force their will on a kid. Don't do this, don't do that. And they don't realize they're just killing his spirit. But
and they're injecting their will, and that will starts to become perverted inside of the child, and it starts to get angry, and then confusion, and then making excuses, and all the things of the world, the cultural things, whatever it might be. It gets in these poor little kids, and we are those poor little kids. We are those poor little kids. Even me, and even I think you guys think, well, you're, Roy Master's son. We have the same crap in our family that you have in yours, just a different flavor of it. Not that you want to taste it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's junk from my parents' upbringing. My dad was able to overcome his upbringing. My mom, not so much. And even though she lived with my dad all those years, they had their squabbles all of my life. And so all of that confusion and garbage was in there, just like with your parents and the rest. And then I think to myself, well, at least my parents were married my whole life. And some people didn't have fathers. Some people didn't have, mothers. Maybe the mother ran away, which happens. But no matter what it is, no matter what the flavor of your situation, there's one Savior. And that one Savior, Jesus Christ, is the redemption, is the reckoning and the redemption, and is here to save us from ourselves and our parents and our upbringings and our culture and all that. And that's the part that gets missed so much, is that we try to intellectually overcome our problems. Our intellect cannot overcome our problems. Listen, the devil allows us to think that we can become smart. And that's why God says, beware, don't eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge of good and evil. So what do? We go to school to try to become really smart and to outsmart the world, and we can't, and we fail. And we wonder why our marriages are bad and our kids are rotten and our life is messed up. It's because we are not going back to the source. I find that it's so much easier than I ever thought it would be. I thought, I have to be smart like my brother. My dad used to say, why aren't you like your brother? I'm not telling which brother. I'm joking. Yeah, Mark was an incredibly smart human being as we grew up. He could consume things, books and smart and all that, and I wasn't so much. I wanted to work with my hands. So my dad said a couple times, and I finally said to him when I was 40, I said, Dad, I wrote him a letter. I said, I'm sorry for all of the pain and the suffering that I've caused you and the aggravation, but to each in his own time and ability. And I've got to go off on my own now. When I was 40, now I'm 62. I've got to go off on my own, and I've got to learn about life a little bit and do my own thing. But I'm not smart like Mark, and I'm not crafty like Michael. I'm not Diane. I'm not David. I'm Alan. I got to find out who that is. It's taken me 22 years to get here. But I realize that love of knowledge is like the love of money. The love of money is the root of all evil. And I think actually they made a mistake. It's the love of knowledge that's the root of all evil, because God said, you can have anything in this whole garden, but don't eat of the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge. And because we want to be gods with our knowledge. And the root of all evil, I think knowledge is one thing that we have to be very careful with, because we think we're smart, smarter than God.
And like you said, the knowledge is pride. Pride is the original.
Right. Well, because when you have knowledge, what's the first thing that happens? You puff up with pride. You can't, if you're like dumb, it's hard to be prideful about being dumb, right?
What money does is give you the power. So that's when they say it's the root of all evil, because you're addicted to, you pray for a whole lot of things, but it takes money to activate it.
Yeah.
Well,
so what it is that knowledge, you puff up with pride, and then what powers that pride of the knowledge that you have? But money is the power. It's like fuel, and it pushes you forward into the world, and then you start teaching. This is what happens to a lot of people that teach. I watch a lot of these motivational speakers. My dad was not a motivational speaker. People try and say, oh, your dad's a motivational speaker, self-help, motivational. I go, well, self-help maybe, but definitely not motivational. But you should be motivated once you realize how rotten you've become, there should be some sort of a motivation to learn how to be free thinking again, but not motivational the way that you get up and get hyped up. You get wound up. Remember I was talking about the clock? I don't want to be wound up like that clock by somebody else, because at some point that energy wears off. That's a hypnotic thing, getting wound up like that. And it wears off, and then you go back into depression again because, the clock ran out. The wind, the spring finally stopped motivating you down the road. Motivational speakers aren't going to help you.
Well, I think that's where the be born again comes in. When I know I was talking with Jan and we were saying, well, I always thought that once you become baptized, that's kind of the end of it. You understand everything, and so then that's all you have to do. Then you're kind of saved for the rest of your life. You're forgiven, everything, so you can just walk away. The problem is that's just the beginning. It's just like your marriage. You have to have a commitment. You're making a commitment with God with that baptism that you're going to try and improve the rest of your life. And the things that you're going to do is to be a servant of God, to be his servant, his conduit for his love. And so what you have to do is be clean and pure, like Bo was saying, so that stuff can come through. What you're doing is bring the kingdom of heaven to earth.
That's right. What's funny is how many of us feel like that we're that donkey chasing the carrot, and we never get the carrot. Every now and then the carrot gets stale, and you're like, all right, well, that's I'm never going to catch that, and it's a stale carrot anyway. So we change out the carrot and put a nice fresh orange carrot out in front of ourselves again. Like, I want to be good for this reason today. But the reality is, if you don't have a pure heart, and if you aren't doing it for the right reason, you'll never get that carrot anyway. So you better stop chasing a carrot and actually have a real purpose in your life. And the purpose needs to be to do what's right because it's right, because your Father in heaven wants you back from this world whole. And you ain't getting back there whole if you are chasing a carrot and or trying to get the golden rings, trying to get wealth, trying to get power, trying to get the fastest car, the fanciest car. I'm sitting next to my car buddy.
Goal-oriented.
Goal-oriented, that's right.
Well, here's the problem with that. You get the goal, and then what do you have? It doesn't give you everything that you thought it was. The devil lied. He told you
right.
You were going to get whatever you wanted when you reach that goal. And so what you have to do then is set a bigger goal. And it just keeps going on like that, and the more it happens, the more
That's what I call changing the carrot. Yes. Carrot got stale, put a bigger, more orange carrot out in front of myself. And I realized at a certain point, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to stop all these reasons, all these intellectual reasons. Why? Because if I do this, I'll get that. And if I do that, I'll get this. And just do it because it's right. Because I know it's right. Be still and know. So all of the intellectual reasons can be shoved to the side, and just know that you're doing the right thing in your life. And don't have a reason. Don't have a prize, a carrot. Don't have any reason except because it's right, because your Father in heaven compels you forward to do the right thing each day. I wake up early, and I'm excited to get out of bed and go out and do whatever I got to do. And some days I don't want to do what I've got to do, whether it's digging ditches, which I've been doing, whether it's spending my money on things that I would rather have other things, if you know what I'm saying. Like tractors, I'm buying tractors. I would rather have a nice sports car. But what can I do with a sports car sitting in the garage? Not much. But I can dig some big holes out in the field with the tractor and do some, maybe fix our spring and have fresh water and make the lakes deeper and do all the things that we need to prepare this ranch back to the purpose that I believe that God gave it to us to do. We have to be a good shepherd. I have to be a good shepherd of what God has put in my care. To whom much is given, much is expected. And he has given me this place to care for. And so his expectations of me are much greater than I ever realized, but I realize it now. And I think it doesn't matter once you wake up to that realization. You can't say, well, I've spent too much time being the other way. No, I'm happy to have the days that I have left. And I'm not gonna have that little clock ticking away in my bathroom. That's reminding me how short of time I have.
That's what it took to get you here.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's what it takes to get all of us to where we are in life. Making a lot of mistakes, making a lot of excuses. Just think of that one excuse that Adam made to God. She did it. You gave her to me. Good Lord. One of the very first excuses of all humanity. God gave Adam a helper. She made a mistake, and instead of him correcting her, he made an excuse for it. We do that. We do that every day, all day long, making excuses for things. And we just got to stop making excuses. It's easy to say. Actually, it's easy to do. You just have to choose that.
Interesting what you just said. She did it. You gave her to me. He blamed the woman and he blamed God. You gave her to me. See that?
That's right. Well, so I feel a quickening in my heart. Anybody else feel a quickening on our lives lately?
You was mentioning something about the intellectual thing. I remember Roy used to always say, this type of information that he's given, you don't have to memorize it. And it's true, because once something hits you in a deep way, it come alive in you. And it's not a memory. It goes beyond your memory. Once you get it, you can forget it, and it's still there.
Because there's an anxiety when you hear something that's beautiful and that's helped you. There's an anxiety. How am I going to remember this? I got to write it down. I got to tie a string on my finger so I don't forget. But it's actually a game.
No, yeah, it's really your appreciation of it when it hits you. That's the true worship of God. You worship God in truth and in spirit.
In the moment.
In the moment. And once you get it in the moment, it's permanent. It's eternal. Because the spiritual knowledge is eternal, and you don't have to worry about memorizing it because it's alive in you. And it come about, and the Holy Spirit bring it about when it's necessary, And one day you're walking along and come out naturally.
You don't always stay in the moment. You want to, but you just have to see that, oh, I'm not. Ooh.
Yeah, that's it.
And you bring yourself back. That's right. That consciousness is what brings you back. There's a constant joy in returning back to your center. Catching yourself, it's almost like when you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes a little bit, and you're like, oh, it's morning. Or is it? Is it morning? I guess it's morning. Yeah, it's morning. Oh, maybe I'll go back to sleep. And then you catch yourself, no, I got to wake up. I got to get up. I need to start my day. That's how we are. We're catching ourselves, and there's a joy of catching yourself.
And see, when you realize you're not in the moment, it's like doing the meditation. See, when you're not in the moment, you call up in a daydream where you didn't, like Roy said, you didn't wake yourself up, but that's God waking you up.
Mic drop. It's God waking us up. I'm just learning how to appreciate just being alive. Just being alive, and to be able to appreciate, to have the breath and the health to be able to appreciate my Creator for giving me this opportunity, living in gratitude and not being afraid to venture out into the world and let the world know how I feel about my Creator and my Savior and my life and my family and my friends and what I believe. Because if you don't let the world know what you believe by the way you live your life, you actually are letting them know what you believe by the way you live your life. And then guess what? Then God will put the words in your mouth when the time is right, and or he'll allow you to say, I don't know how to say this, but let me give it a try. And then maybe that's the best way. I've heard my dad say that. I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but let me give it a try. And then unbelievable stuff comes out of his mouth. And that innocence is what we all need, is to not be afraid to just give it a try.
A few months ago, I had a little chat with God. I was going to get together with my brother, and I actually admitted to God that I hate my brother. And I said it 2 times. And then what came out of my mouth is, I don't want to hate him. So then I saw him, and I didn't have the anger in me. It was like he took it out. But I saw it trying to come back in. I'm like, no, I'm not going back there. So anyway, a couple of days ago, a friend of mine called me up who'd been helping my brother, was really ill. I didn't know. And he said, will you take him to the hospital? He said, I can't do it. And so I went over there, and I talked him out of going to the hospital. But I started, I got him some medicine, got him stuff, started taking care of him. And this peace was in me, this sweetness was in me. His hair was all straggly. He's got shingles, and very painful. It was just like God gave me this blessing experience to experience something sweet with my brother. And I was brushing his hair. I would have never done that before. It was such a sweet experience. And then, he just wasn't getting better. So I finally, he had to go to the hospital. But he got cranky at the hospital, and I reacted to that, and I just left. And then I kind of dropped the ball a little bit, and I didn't realize it. And then a couple of days later, I went to check on him, and he had lost his medicine, and I'm like, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I got back to taking care of him again and brushing his hair. And now he is getting well. But you know what? He said thank you so many times. I can't even count the times he said thank you. And I'm just grateful to have some sweetness between us.
Well, you know what? That's what waking up is all about. You wake up to your own anger and your resentment and your judgments, and you start to wake up and realize that that's death. And what you experienced was life. And the feeling of giving kindness is giving life. And we have lost the art of kindness. We all have expectations. I'll give you this if you give me that. But we have to learn how to have kindness and give, because we're supposed to be in service of each other. And that's how God wants us to be in service of each other for the right reasons.
I just love how he brings those right experiences, because it seems like lately more experiences have been coming towards me as little lessons. They're all like little lessons, and I just love it. It's like perfect timing. It's like just the right thing. Maybe you think you can't do it. I've never taken much care of somebody that was really ill like that. And I just had this peace, and I waited for him. It was amazing. It was a really, really sweet experience. I'm very grateful for it.
I'll just say how something that was a negative in your life with your brother, all of the negatives are actually opportunities. And that was an opportunity to grow beyond something. So anything negative in your life, right on the other side of it is an opportunity for growth. And if you handle it right, now you've walked through something with your brother. You have a new experience with him now. See, you built something new you could have held on to that and not helped him, but God gave you the perfect opportunity to have love for your brother. And so any negative relationship you have, there's opportunity there.
Yeah, he says, and God showed you he was there. That's that John Voight thing. On Tucker Carlson, they showed it again the other day about John Voight saying that he was saying to God, why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult? And he heard from God, because it's supposed to be. And he says, once I knew God was there, my whole life changed. I felt completely alone before that. But once he got that affirmation that God was there and does answer in his own special way, whether it's words or not words, or actions or things, or something that happens in front of you, God is there. All of a sudden, wow, that changes your whole outlook on life, knowing that God is watching, is waiting, and does act in your life. Well, I think here, today on Independence Day, we celebrate our independence as we lose it. We celebrate something that we're sadly on the verge of losing. I don't think we will. I think America is going to wake up. And I think that Biden may have done us a big favor, believe it or not, by taking us close to the gates of hell so that we could all see how ugly it really is and wake up to this beautiful world, this paradise lost, and maybe try to make it a little bit of a paradise again. If not, at least singularly, if I can say that right, each one of us can find paradise. And that's a promise, I believe, from our Creator, that paradise is there, it's waiting for us. All we have to do is choose the right path in life. All right. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you.